What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Colin Alcaves. Today, we're going to be talking about two current Rangers players, Vincent Trocheck and Mika Zibanejad. Who's better? Who's worse? Where should they play this upcoming season? We're going to get right on into that. But before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and you ring that bell so you don't miss notification. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below on how you feel on this debate. Lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. But before we really get into it, Colin, it's been a minute since you've been able to join us here. I want to know how you're doing, and I want to know what's up with that Nashville Predators shirt that you got on right now.
This is just my wear-around shirt. I don't give a shit about it. The jersey, however, I do like. It's weird being back after not being here for so long. Cap friendly is no longer a thing now. I was trying to pull up my websites to have my research here and whatever to talk about, Trocheck and whoever else we're going to get into. I was struggling with where to go because cap friendly has been my go-to forever. But it's good to be back. I'm excited to get into it. Obviously, I've taken a little bit of a hiatus post-playoff loss. I needed some time to recoup. And I'm back and ready to talk hockey now that there will be hockey this month.
Yeah, preseason starts in I think just about 3 weeks, maybe a couple less days than that. But it is coming around soon. Colin says he needed time to grieve the playoff loss, and that was about 3 months. I hope you're fully recovered and ready to have your heart broken again this upcoming season, because as Rangers fans, we all know how this thing goes. But maybe this year will be different. Maybe one of our two elite centers on our roster will pull through and win us a Stanley Cup somehow. But let's get right into that debate. I'm just going to lay it out there right off the bat. I fully believe that Vincent Trocheck is a better hockey player than Mika Zibanejad. And this isn't even based on last season. This last season, Trocheck hit career highs all over the place, and Mika Zibanejad did slump a little bit. So statistically speaking from last year, yeah, there's evidence to prove that Trocheck is better. But I think even just beyond that, the way that they play, what they contribute to the roster, I think it's still all the same. Zibanejad is kind of like a one-trick pony. Even when he's hot, he knows how to shoot the puck and put the puck in the net. He doesn't really play a lot of defense. I know last year he started off defensively pretty well. I think he was in a couple of people's Selke Trophy power rankings the first couple weeks of the season, but there was a steep fall off about a quarter into the season where he just kind of fell apart defensively a little bit. And like I said, he scores goals, and if his lover Chris Kreider isn't playing well, then he's not going to play well either. Whereas on the other hand, you got a guy like Vincent Trocheck. He's elite at scoring. He's elite at playing defense. Forecheck, backcheck, Trocheck. We know the drill. Only thing he needs to improve upon is not hitting the post as much. But, he's playing with Artemi Panarin and Alexis Lafreniere. Obviously, the Panarin effect on Lafreniere's breakout is real, probably more than the Trocheck effect. But the Trocheck effect is there. I don't think Lafreniere would have been able to do what he did last year without a guy who is an all-around solid hockey player like Vincent Trocheck. So, in my opinion, I think there's not even a debate. If we're going to talk about who the number one center on the Rangers is, to me, above and beyond, it's Vincent Trocheck. Not to bash Mika by any means, though. I don't have anything against Mika. When we're comparing the two players, to me, it's quite obvious where my stance is.
Fair enough. I mean, you make some good points coming off last year. Obviously, as you said, Trocheck with career highs across the board. 77 points in 82 games, just barely beating Mika's 72 in 81. He's much better on the face-off dot. The only thing that he lacks, in my opinion, is the size. 5'11", 183 is not exactly small, but Mika Zibanejad at 6'2", 201. He has a little bit more size there, and that could be favorable at times. But I feel like over the last year, year and a half, I feel like we've just seen Mika, or really the last two seasons, ever since that deep run against when we lost to the Lightning in the conference final, I feel like Mika's just forgotten how to shoot entirely. And we went from, being unguardable on the power play and just from his spot, that he rents from Ovi. He had one of the best one-timers in the league. He was up there. I think he's still up there in one-timer goals scored. In active players currently, I believe it's like him, Stamkos, is a bunch of guys up there, but it's like all prolific scorers. So, it's a shocker to see him kind of lose that ability. I mean, he scored one more goal than Vincent Trocheck, and that's just not what you'd expect from a guy making 8.5 a year, comparatively speaking, the guy who's making 5.625. I know he's also on one of the better deals in the entire league, but to have a guy at Trocheck's cap hit outscoring your number one center in terms of cap and what he was supposed to be, and I'm not saying he can't get back there, but it's just wild. If he can return to form like how he was, like I said a couple of years ago, then we have a sick 1-2 punch. But I think right now you're right. I think Trocheck overall is playing a better game than Mika is. I think his defense also lacks a little bit Trocheck's, but it doesn't help that he has Panarin on his line, who's notorious for not really being a great defensive player. And I know Mika plays a lot on the penalty kill and things like that, and he's really good in those areas too. So I'm not bashing him. I just like to see a return to form. Obviously, a 1-year slump. I'm not super worried. He can easily get back to the player that he was. This is the first year he's kind of taken a step back, and he's like 2 years removed from having 90-something points, maybe 3. I don't know. Like I said, without cap friendly, I got nothing in front of me here. But I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. I really like what Trocheck brings to the team. He's that pest. He's that guy who you hate to play against, but love to have on your team. As we saw against in the Carolina series, he was constantly in everybody's faces, drawing penalties, pointing at players after goals, and turning around, getting in Aho's face after he takes a hit to make a play and things like that. And it's like you love to see it, But I'm not really ready to give up the 1C title from Mika yet. I know a lot of people are probably going to be down to do that, but one bad year for me doesn't really constitute taking him off or not saying he's the 1C anymore. I still think that even though he had a down year, he's still just a phenomenal player through and through. I think he's a more rounded player than Trocheck is, and I think that he gets put in a lot of more do or die situations. I feel like more often than not, especially on that penalty kill, he's just absolutely lethal. I just wish he would shoot it more. I think that's just going to be the number one thing for him is he just needs to shoot. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I don't know if you think he's deferring too much to the pass or what the deal with that is, but
I think it's a mixture of the two, where there were an abundance of times last season where I'm yelling at the TV for Mika to shoot it, and he opts for a pass that goes absolutely nowhere. But then there's also been 1,000 times, especially last season, where I thought maybe he needs to pass it, and instead he shoots it and it doesn't even hit the net. So I think it is a combination of his style of play has kind of changed throughout the last year, and he's also lost his shooting ability. I mean, I look back to that 2022 playoff run that you referenced, and I think that was prime Mika when he was easily the number one center. But I don't know, something changed. I think last season was a unique situation where at the beginning of the season, Kreider also was in a bit of a slump. So having one of his line mates also struggling definitely did not help. And then his other line mate was constantly changed in and out because we didn't have a right winger. Kakko was there for a little bit. VC played there for a little while. Wheeler, not really a lot to work with. Hopefully Riley Smith this upcoming season is going to provide a little bit more than Blake Wheeler did. I'll keep my fingers crossed now that I've said it, and I will knock on the wood. But I don't know. You make a lot of fair points. I'm still leaning towards the fact that Trocheck might just be our best center, if not overall one of the best players on the team. Obviously guys like Panarin, Shesterkin have more raw talent, but I think when you factor in every aspect of the game, you could make the argument that Trocheck might be the best player on the Rangers. Actually, not Igor, but outside of Igor,
pretty damn good. I'm not saying he's not good. He's one of my favorite players. I just bought his jersey this past season. I love the guy, and like I said, he's on one of the most team-friendly deals in the whole league, just based on pure value and what he's doing. And I'm interested to see, because you also brought up a good point with Mika, that constant revolving door of a right wing. Now they have maybe some stability there. But maybe, I was also thinking about this on my way home from work today. Obviously that second line of Panarin and Lafreniere and Trocheck was phenomenal. But Riley Smith and Trocheck have played games together. They played over in Florida together. So there is some familiarity there. So if Lafreniere continues to make steps in like the offensive zone and be able to control the puck like he did in the playoffs and create opportunities in offense on his own, maybe you can move him up to that first line, finally give him the minutes and the time that he deserves on that first line, even though this is like a pseudo first line that he's on. And you can reunite Riley Smith, who's more of a defensive presence while also still scoring goals. Him and Trocheck could help balance out maybe Panarin's lack of defense, and Lafreniere provides the spark plug for, a line that needed it all last year. So, they have options now that they have Riley Smith. They have some fluidity between those top two lines where you could really, if things pan out well, you could have a 1A and 1B. I know we talked about it last year. Obviously, it never really came to fruition. And while, it says that Mika and Kreider were on line one, we all know who line one was last year. Just based on, like I said, points. And when you needed a line to go out there and score, it was always their line. But this year you could really have a pseudo 1 and pseudo 2. Like you could have two really good lines. But I still think Mika has top line potential. I still think that when push comes to shove, Mika can be the better overall player. It's just a matter of will he. And I can recall there's one play in particular. I forget the team. It might have been the Blackhawks, like the Canadians or something. It was the Devils. He went to pass it and it bounced off a guy right back to him. And then he went to pass it again and it went in the net. And I was like, stop passing it. Please stop passing it. I think after that 1 year, Kreider scored 50 goals. He thinks he can only pass now. And it's like, that's not what you have to do. Kreider can still go out there and put up 40. I think he did it last year. Or he was one shy. He was right around there. But he can still put up the goal totals now that he's finally broken that curse of being able to get past 30. He's done it 3 seasons in a row now. You don't have to feed him the puck. He can do it on his own. He can tip it in on his own. He can create his own offense. You need to worry about drawing guys to you and opening up the ice while you shoot the puck and become an offensive threat. And I think that's the key to success here for him. It obviously is getting some stability on that first line, which we should have for the first time since Pavel Buchnevich was traded away for a half-open bag of potato chips and an apple core. But, you finally have some consistency in that top 6, and then you just got to have him fucking shoot. Oop, my bad. But you got to have him shoot.
I agree with you. I'm happy you brought up like the lineup as well, because that is the last thing I wanted to address. Why are we having this discussion? What does the title of a 1C matter? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't. The main reason why I think this is an important discussion is where are they going to play? And heading into the recording today, I was pretty dead set on that, despite the fact that I think Trocheck is better. I wouldn't have wanted to change the lineup at all, just because I love that second line of Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, and I think Riley Smith might be enough to help Kreider and Mika. But then after hearing you talk and bringing up how Trocheck and Smith used to play together, and then maybe pair them with Panarin could work, and Lafreniere steps up to help Mika and Kreider. I think that would be the only acceptable line change, I would think, which would still leave Trocheck on the second line and Zibanejad up on the first line. I don't think it'd be a smart idea to just swap the centers and have Panarin, Zibanejad, Lafreniere, and then Kreider, Trocheck, Smith. It could work. It's not a bad option. I don't think there are any bad options when it comes to our top 6. That's just, that wouldn't be my ideal option. I think out of the 3 I said, that'd probably be the third. But I don't know. At the end of the day, you kind of said the Rangers don't really have a first and second line. It is kind of like a 1A and 1B. They receive very similar playing time, and I think the all-around skill levels are relatively comparable. So I don't know. To me, in my opinion, I do believe Trocheck is the best center on this team, if not the best overall player besides Shesterkin. But as far as lineup changes for this upcoming season, I wouldn't change anything. I would start off the season with the same top 6 we had last year, just sub in Riley Smith for whoever was playing on our first line by the end of the year last year. I don't even remember. The only way I'd fully support a change is if Lafreniere goes up to the first line and the second line consists of Panarin, Trocheck, and Smith. I think that would be a very dominant line. But that about wraps up like my thoughts on it. I just want to add one more thing. Yesterday, I ate a plum for the first time. Not bad. I didn't think I was going to like it. It was just like an apple, but just like slightly more tart. So I like the plum, and I will be trying it again. But yeah, that wraps up my thoughts. And there's a crazy thunder that I'm hearing right now. So I'm losing it. Do you have any final thoughts?
Honestly, I going into this next season, I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree, but this is outside of, like, obviously we got all those trade deadline acquisitions that was supposed to pan out and I never really did, whether it was Kane or Tarasenko or whoever we got. Going into a season, this is probably the best top six I've seen in a while, just because, you have your superstars. Mika Zibanejad is still a superstar, regardless of what people think or what people are going to say. He is still a superstar. He's nearly a point per game this year. He's an elite penalty killer. He can get back to lethal on the power play, and he's just a jackknife of a guy. He can do it all. You got a 40-goal scorer in Chris Kreider. You got Panarin, who we just saw, make another run for a Hart. Obviously, he wasn't. I don't think he even finished top 3, but it was still a very commendable season. Trocheck's kind of blossomed in this player that nobody really like. Not that we didn't think he could be it, but we didn't expect it. I'm more than happy that he did, and I welcome it. But when they signed him, I didn't think he would be this good. He's exceeded my expectations. I expected him to be good, but he's phenomenal. And then Lafreniere, it took a huge leap last year, which we all knew needed to happen. We're happy that it did. But now it's you have so much flexibility in your top 6, and guys who are under team control for a good long while, and guys who will be under team control once Lafreniere signs. I know Riley Smith will probably leave after this, but for this season, you have guys who they all are solid NHLers. It's not like you have Jimmy VC up in your top 6. Not that he's not a solid NHLer, but he's not a top 6 guy. He shouldn't even sniff a top 6. Or who's the guy that we got from the Blue Jackets? I can't think of his name. The fast guy.
Wenberg?
No, not him. He came from the Kraken. I can't think of it, but I can see his face. I don't know. But everybody knows who I'm talking about. The speed demon. Roslovic. That's the one.
He was so irrelevant, we forgot who he was.
Roslovic should not have been in the top 6 either. He was a bottom 6 guy. Maybe a second line on a really desperate team. But, now you have guys who are meant to be in the top 6 who are in the top 6, and you kind of mix and match if they're struggling, and it's you're not just putting any bum up in there. You're putting another guy who deserves to be there. So it gives Laviolette the flexibility to kind of play around with it if he doesn't like what he's seeing on a night-to-night basis. But they also have some consistency going into the season, which I like. They're not picking up a guy at the deadline who then has to learn the system and acclimate to playing in New York. You get a guy who from the get-go, he's training in New York. His first games are going to be in New York early in the season. He has 82 games to get playing in New York under his belt before hopefully a deep playoff run. And he gets those jitters out early on. Playing in New York is a tough thing. We mentioned it across all sports. So coming over at the deadline and being expected to be the missing piece is always a tough thing for anybody to do, even if they don't admit it. Mentally, that's such a tough thing to do.
That's what I liked about the Tarasenko trade, because I remember we were just sitting here and we're yeah, in a couple weeks the trade deadline activities are going to start, and then it was just Tarasenko to the Rangers, and we're
yeah,
started
good, but now we don't have to worry about that.
Exactly.
Top 6 is set. They can all practice in the offseason together. They can do training camp together. They can kind of gel the whole season. They have 82 games to perfect their craft before it's time to step up on the biggest stage. And that's what I really am most excited about this season, is just that they have that consistency and that fluidity in the top 6 where they can really do anything that they want, just because all the players in that top 6 are so dynamic. Obviously, could there be better players in the top 6? Yeah, we could build a top 6 of Matthews and McDavid and whatever, but that's unrealistic. For what the Rangers had with a cap strap, I think they did a phenomenal job of filling the holes that they had to, and kind of building a team that I think at least the top 6 can compete with any top 6.
Yeah, that's a valid point. We got a pretty solid core. It should be an exciting season coming up. Yeah, like we said before, today's September 4th. At the time of this recording, preseason starts at the end of this month, which is very, very exciting. So as we said the last couple videos, as the season approaches, and things start to ramp up, we'll also be ramping up our content. It's time to fully get back in the swing of things. Dead of the summer is over, basically. So if you guys want to see more, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and you ring that bell so you don't miss notification. Leave your thoughts on this debate down in that comment section below. And now that I'm talking about fruit, let me know if we should start like a mini series built in within the podcast where at the beginning of every episode, I just try a new fruit. I think that'd be fun. But chances are no one's watching this deep into the episode. So lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. But I do want to test something. If anyone is watching this deep into the episode, comment the word bananas, and we'll see. I guarantee maximum one person.
Have them comment the name Mark Stahl.
You know what? I change it. Comment the name Mark Stahl is garbage. Just comment that or bananas, whatever you want. But yeah, have a good one. And let's go Rangers.